Well, thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little experience I had over the since 2020. A very unfortunate situation is everybody knows is COVID, where I was stuck with a customer who initially asked me to help him a little bit with the productivity because the factory, the subsidiary had an issue in delivering enough products and being performant. Then COVID came and suddenly I found myself in being alone with a team managing the entire factory, being cut off of everything. And that was not in a country where I spoke the language of. I was in the deep Czech Republic, very close to the Polish border, and I don't speak any Czech outside of one pivo, please, or to ask for a few things. With closed borders, trucks that came from Poland, that was a 40-kilometer queue line to cross the borders, and everything, things we all remember that. But surprisingly, not only we did manage it quite well, but we even managed to grow the productivity at the same time. And I would even say retrospectively, if I look at the year and a half where I ended up being in charge of that factory, that were the most productive times ever. Okay, so it was not like many companies had a dump in sales, didn't sell anything anymore, and didn't know what to do with the people. We had an increase in the sales because it was really FCMG, fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG. Sorry, dyslexic. In shorts, diapers for babies, fem care products, tampons. Okay, everything everybody knows well. And the babies, napkins, they didn't stop using them. On the contrary, the more they were at home, the more they needed them, and the more you needed to get them out. So we even saw some increases of the demand by up to 50% at the beginning of the pandemic for some supermarket chains, and we all know them, Carrefour or whoever, and the Polish ones, the Czech ones, to increase their demand tremendously. And we had to fulfill it. We had absenteeism growing, and we didn't know where it was going, especially March 2020. Nobody was really knowing about it. We heard the government say things, claim things, masks yes, masks no, is it useful, is it not useful, vaccines. And we hear that for a year and a half now. I think we're all tired of it. It's the same. We're all tired about it. We actually managed to go through it, and I'm going to go through two things which are linked. The one thing is making sure to increase the productivity and making sure to meet customer demands. That's the very hard stuff. But the other stuff is to keep the people safe, because everybody catching COVID, it's pretty useless. And then it's just going to increase the absenteeism and have risks. But the drivers you use for both is very similar. The one thing is you need a very good team, and you need to be super transparent with the team. Not use highly complex university words and the usual vocabulary we hear about OEE driving the accountability, and I'll leave you all think and laugh behind your faces about all these words we use every day and we hear from business schools and from very highly educated people. And you need to be also transparent to the people on the ground and tell them, look, we're trying to do what we can. Please help us, and not try to teach them new methodologies and a lot of things. And that one allowed us in a very short period of time to reduce the internal scrap of the production by 25%. Wow. And to increase the productivity by about 10%. Without particular Excel spreadsheets or other drivers. That was really a regular communication, and the communication at that point, I took it in charge and I communicated daily down to the base of the factory, but in a very transparent way. I think that's one of the crucial parts, and it's crucial that your teams in companies communicate on the same way and are aligned. That's regarding the productivity part. Now, interestingly, you also have an issue regarding the health you need to keep, because you have to imagine those factories. We produced about 400 million, in good months 360, in exceptional months 400 million pieces of nappies, femcare, tampons. It's a huge amount of volumes. The factory is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without interruptions, and at speeds which are quite high. The health, you have about 3 to 4 people on a line, and you need to keep the health of the people very safe. And for doing that, firstly, you can communicate, you can give them orders, but the more you're going to give them orders, the less they're going to follow it. I mean, we see what's happening right now. The more we give instructions to people, the less they follow it because they don't understand it. So you need to explain them again, down to the base, the exact logic of your following, why you're doing it, and asking them to adhere, but not to adhere stupidly to it, but to grab it, to understand it, and then to live it and to make it themselves. It's pretty pointless to wear a mask inside a factory if afterwards you go to a COVID party. That's the way they used to be called in the Czech Republic, in garage with a lot of pivo. And the next day you have contamination chains. But we followed that through pretty heftily. And in the height of the second wave, we had a number of issues because we did have some contamination cases which we could not prevent totally. And at that point, we had to interrupt the chains. And now I know I'm going to something which in France would probably be unthinkable right now. And I know it's not even being discussed. But a regular mass testing in the factory of each and every one. The quick tests, not the deep PCR tests, but very simple testing on a regular basis, everybody at the same time. It's been implemented in some countries. We've implemented it in that factory about 2 months before it was mandated by law. I can just tell you, out of 900 people we had in the factory, the first time we had 50 positives. The second time we had 20 positives. From the third time onwards, it was 0.
And in France?
In France, we don't do it. But I had to go beyond. We had to ask the consent of the people, but again, it was not mandated by the law at that time. But we managed to do it. The people consented to it, they submitted to it. We did not get the result. We got it indirectly, but we mandated an external medical company to perform those tests every Thursday and Friday. And the 4 shifts, there was a 4-shift pattern, all the 4 shifts were tested between Thursday morning 6 a.m. and Friday morning 10 a.m. They came in with nurses for 2 hours, 3 hours at the beginning of the shifts. They tested everybody in line. Who was positive was sent home, who was negative went to work. As I say, first time, 50 cases, it goes down very, very quickly.
To 0? To 0?
Down to 0, yeah. So that's the best way, because then you interrupt the chain. What I was surprised at the beginning, we had one case, one little case, and the next week we got a chain of quarantine people because they were contact. There was another person, and they didn't look sick. That's the worst one. Those are the worst because they look sane. They go to work. They don't wear the mask. They don't do protective measures. They come close. They go to the canteen together. All fine, and they contaminate somebody else. Then you find a case. So I really encourage this mass testing. And if I look at the cost-benefit ratio, just to give you, again, we're talking about 900 people, so it's not a small place. And 900 tests per week costed us something like 3,500 euros. Honestly, we're talking about, I know there's some finance people here, but we're talking about 12,000 euros for 1,000 people, which is nothing in order to get the chains down. And we have to, what I would really suggest is we should go beyond our usual barriers and borders, and we should go beyond the privacy laws. And I understand privacy laws are important, but up to a certain point, by getting self-responsibilization of the people and by putting creative, innovative ways, full transparency in the communication, you manage to achieve things, even in a pandemic, that you would never thought you have achieved. Except for France, but also for other countries.
What about the people, so they've tested positive and they have to go home?
Yes.
Do they still receive their salary? Isn't that part of the problem? That if
They received their salary because they basically were sent to a PCR test to be confirmed, and the PCR test positive, then they were sent by government into quarantine, automatically got the salaries.
What percentage of those were vaccinated?
Actually, at the beginning, none, because there was vaccination took place later. But at the end, we can say that about 10-20% of the people who are vaccinated, 20% of the people positive are vaccinated. This is what I see with other customers right now. So the breakthroughs are actually quite high. The good news is the vaccinated people don't fall sick badly. They don't go into intensive care. That's the very good news. So I can only encourage the vaccination. But the vaccination does not protect from an infection. And the infected vaccinated in a factory are the worst of all, because they don't even notice it, and they become spreaders. That's really the bad part of it. So as a summary, since my timekeeper also said it's already above 10 minutes, but we're going to be open for question and answers afterwards, is full transparency, but really full transparency. People are not stupid, even on the factory. They're far more intelligent than we think, and they have a huge amount of good common sense. So be transparent. If you don't know, don't do what the government tells you to do. Don't to say you know. Tell them you don't know, but that we all have the same objective. So be transparent. Show your limits. Show that it's a compact management team. Be present. Be there for them. Communicate to them on a daily routine. I think somebody in World War II did that very famously. Winston Churchill was a great communicator during the war, which managed also to upkeep the UK at that time. And throw most of the things you learn in textbooks overboard, because it's not going to help you in that situation. So that, as a summary, as I say, it's an experience sharing. We can talk about it individually later, yes?
Yeah, it sounds to me like your challenge wasn't really so much COVID, as having to change the culture of your company and putting in good management practices that would have been, that are applicable whether it's COVID or non-COVID.
I would even say that probably COVID was an opportunity to finally do that and get the corporate politics overboard.